All right, we're here for chapter 9 of Treasure Island, and this one's called Powder and Arms. So before we get started, let's decide what powder and arms mean. Some of you might actually know if you are already somebody who is maybe a hunter or you like guns, you might know about black powder guns. And you might know that arms means like guns, like weaponry, right? So powder and arms. In the 1700s, there were pistols, but they were all like black powder, which means that they had to stay dry. Guns don't really like to be wet anyway, but in this case, they really can't be wet because if your powder is wet, it won't ignite. And they would be packed. They'd have that, have packing. Yeah. So anyway, look into that if you want to know more about it. But the armaments of a ship would often include things like cannon too. And cannon would have to have the cannonballs, the gunpowder, the packing materials, and things like that. And that thing they packed it with, and so the powder and arms on a boat would be the ammunition and the weaponry. Okay. All right. So we're going to get started. Make sure you have your packet nearby and you're ready to mark on the text as we read. Chapter 9, Powder and Arms. The Hispaniola lay some way out, and we went under the figureheads and round the sterns of many other ships, and their cables sometimes grated underneath our keel and sometimes swung above us. At last, however, we got alongside and were met and saluted as we stepped aboard by the mate, Mr. Arrow, a brown old sailor with earrings in his ears and a squint. He and the squire were very thick and friendly, but I soon observed that things were not the same between Mr. Trelawney and the captain. This last was a sharp-looking man who seemed angry with everything on board, and was soon to tell us why, for we had hardly got down into the cabin when a sailor followed us. "Captain Smallit, sir, axkin to speak with you," said he. "I'm always at the captain's orders. Show him in," said the squire. The captain, who was close behind his messenger, entered at once and shut the door behind him. "Well, Captain Smallit, what have you to say? All well, I hope, all ship-shape and sea-worthy?" "Well, sir," said the captain, "better speak plain, I believe, even at the risk of offense. I don't like this cruise, I don't like the men, and I don't like my officer. That's short and sweet." "Perhaps, sir, you don't like the ship?" inquired the squire, very angry as I could see. "Can't speak as to that, sir, not having seen her tried," said the captain. She seems a clever craft, more I can't say." "Possibly, sir, you may not like your employer either," says the squire. But here Dr. Livesey cut in. "Stay a bit," said he, "stay a bit. No use of such questions as that but to produce ill feeling. The captain has said too much or he has said too little, and I'm bound to say that I require an explanation of his words. You don't, you say, like this cruise. Now why?" So a cruise isn't just like a cruise ship cruise. A cruise is any like ship's journey, right? And so he's saying, "I don't like the cruise and I don't like the men and I don't like my officer." That would be Mr. Arrow, the guy with the earrings. Okay. And and so the squire's like, "Oh, you don't, do you? I guess you don't like the ship." And he's like, "Oh, the ship seems fine. I don't know." And, "Oh, I guess you don't like me." And at that point, Dr. Livesey's like, "Hey, hang on. Let's hear what he says." He's either said too little or he's said too much. Okay. By saying that without having a reason, that'd be dumb. So he's going to have to tell us his reasoning. Okay. "I was engaged, sir, on what we call sealed orders to sail this ship for that gentleman where he should bid me," said the captain. "So far, so good. But now I find that every man before the mast knows more than I do. I don't call that fair now, do you?" "No," said Dr. Livesey, "I don't." "Next," said the captain, "I learn we are going after treasure. Hear it from my own hands, mind you. Now, treasure is ticklish work. I don't like treasure voyages on any account, and I don't like them, above all, when they are secret and when, begging your pardon, Mr. Trelawney, the secret has been told to the parrot." "Silver's parrot?" asked the squire. "And it's a way of speaking," said the captain. "Blabbed, I mean. It's my belief neither of you gentlemen know what you're about, but I'll tell you my way of it. Life or death and a close run." "That is all clear, and I dare say true enough," replied Dr. Livesey. "We take the risk, but we are not so ignorant as you believe us. Next, you say you don't like the crew. Are they not good seamen?" I don't like them, sir, returned Captain Smallit, and I think I should have had the choosing of my own hands, if you go to that. Perhaps you should, replied the doctor. My friend should perhaps have taken you along with him, but the slight, if there be one, was unintentional. And you don't like Mr. Arrow? I don't, sir. I believe he's a good seaman, but he's too free with the crew to be a good officer. A mate should keep to himself, shouldn't drink with the men before the mast. Do you mean he drinks? Cried the squire. No, sir, replied the captain, only that he's too familiar. Well, now, the short and long of it, Captain, asked the doctor, tell us what you want. Well, gentlemen, are you determined to go on this cruise? Like iron, answered the squire. Very good, said the captain. Then, as you've heard me very patiently saying things that I could not prove, hear me say a few words more. They are putting the powder and the arms in the forehold. Now you have a good place under the cabin. Why not put them there? First point. Then you are bringing 4 of your own people with you, and they tell me for some of them are to be berthed forward. Why not give them the berths here beside the cabin? Second point. Any more? Asked Mr. Trelawney. One more, said the captain. There's been too much blabbing already. Far too much, agreed the doctor. I'll tell you what I've heard myself, continued Captain Smallit, that you have a map of an island, and that there's crosses on the map to show where treasure is, and that the island lies, and then he named the latitude and longitude exactly. I never told that, cried the squire, to a soul. The hands know it, sir, returned the captain. Livesey, that must have been you or Hawkins, cried the squire. Doesn't much matter who it was, replied the doctor, and I could see that neither he nor the captain paid much regard to Mr. Trelawney's protestations. Neither did I, to be sure. He was so loose a talker. Yet in this case, I believe he was really right, and that nobody had told the situation of the island. Well, gentlemen, continued the captain, I don't know who has this map, but I make it a point. It shall be kept secret even from me and Mr. Arrow. Otherwise, I would ask you to let me resign. I see, said the doctor. You wish us to keep this matter dark and to make a garrison of the stern part of the ship, manned with my friend's own people, and provided with all the arms and powder on board. In other words, you fear a mutiny. Sir, said Captain Smallit, with no intention to take offense, I deny your right to put words into my mouth. No, Captain, sir, would be justified in going to sea at all if he had ground enough to say that. As for Mr. Arrow, I believe him thoroughly honest. Some of the men are the same. All may be, for what I know. But I am responsible for the ship's safety and the life of every man jack aboard of her. I see things going, as I think, not quite right. And I ask you to take certain precautions, or let me resign my berth. And that's all. Captain Smallit, began the doctor with a smile, did ever you hear the fable of the mountain and the mouse? You'll excuse me, I dare say, but you remind me of that fable. When you came in here, I'll stake my wig you meant more than this. Doctor, said the captain, you are smart. When I came in here, I meant to get discharged. I had no thought that Mr. Trelawney would hear a word. No more I would, cried the squire. Had Livesey not been here, I should have seen you to the deuce. As it is, I have heard you. I will do as you desire, but I think the worse of you. That's as you please, sir, said the captain. You'll find I do my duty. And with that, he took his leave. Trelawney, said the doctor, contrary to all my notions, I believe you have managed to get 2 honest men on board with you, that man and John Silver. Silver, if you like, cried the squire, but as for that intolerable humbug, I declare I think his conduct unmanly, unsailorly, and downright un-English. Well, says the doctor, we shall see. When we came on deck, the men had begun already to take out the arms and powder, yo-hoing at their work, while the captain and Mr. Arrow stood by superintending. The new arrangement was quite to my liking. The whole schooner had been overhauled. 6 berths had been made astern out of what had been the after part of the main hold, and this set of cabins was only joined to the galley and forecastle, or forecastle, as is pronounced often, by a sparred passage on the port side. It had been originally meant that the captain, Mr. Arrow, Hunter, Joyce, the doctor, and the squire were to occupy these 6 berths. Now Redruth and I were to get 2 of them, and Mr. Arrow and the captain were to sleep on the deck in the companion, which had been enlarged on each side, so you might almost have called it a roundhouse. Very low it was still, of course, but there was room to swing 2 hammocks, and even the mate seemed pleased with the arrangement. Even he, perhaps, had been doubtful as to the crew, but that is only guess. For as you shall hear, we had not long the benefit of his opinion. Okay, let me back up and explain the situation that just happened. We meet the captain. He's very important to the story, so make sure you make note of his name. Captain Smallit. Captain Smallit comes in and he wants to tell them that he does not like this. He doesn't like the journey. He doesn't like the crew. He doesn't like his first mate. He's not happy. And he doesn't like it that everybody knows they're after treasure and they all know where. That's suspicious. The squire wants to fire him on the spot. He doesn't like him, doesn't like to have anybody question him. But the doctor is a peacemaker of sort. He's like, no, let's hear him out. Let's hear his reasons. And then when, or what he wants to do. And the captain decides that they're going to move all the powder and arms and the people they brought with them, the people they actually know are going to be housed, their cabins are all going to be on one end of the ship. And that's also going to be where the weaponry and ammunition is. So the doctor's like, oh, you think there's going to be a mutiny. And remember, mutiny is when the crew turns against you and tries to take over. And the captain's like, if I thought there was going to be a mutiny, I wouldn't do this. I just have some issues with how things are being run right now, and I'm worried, and I want to like take precautions. Okay. And so that's what they decide to do. They're just going to move the stuff and get it situated. Jim likes it because he likes it. He's now got a cabin. He's not just sleeping with the crew and stuff. So it's kind of nice for him. All right, so let's move on. There's more. This is the whole voyage, right? We were all hard at work changing the powder and the berths when the last man or two, and Long John along with them, came off in a shore boat. The cook came up the side like a monkey for cleverness, and as soon as he saw what was doing, so ho, mate, says he, what's this? We're a changing of the powder, Jack, answers one. Why, by the powers, cried Long John, if we do, we'll miss the morning tide. My orders, said the captain shortly. You may go below, my man. Hands will want supper. Aye, aye, sir, answered the cook, and touching his forelock, saluting, he disappeared at once in the direction of his galley. The galley is the kitchen on a ship. That's a good man, Captain, said the doctor. Very likely, sir, replied Captain Smallit. Easy with that, men, easy. He ran on to the fellows who were shifting the powder, and then suddenly observing me examining the swivel we carried amidships, a long brass 9, and that's a cannon, by the way. So Jim's like, he saw me. I was like looking at the cannon. He says, here you, ship's boy, he cried. Out of that, off with you to the cook and get some work. And then as I was hurrying off, I heard him say quite loudly to the doctor, I'll have no favorites on my ship. I assure you I was quite of the squire's way of thinking and hated the captain deeply. So Jim, our narrator, relates the whole scene to us. He was there. He saw what happened when the captain came in and complained, and then he saw how things were rearranged on the ship. He saw all of that. And then when everybody's working and he's like messing around looking at the cannon, the captain's like, hey, you, ship's boy, go to the kitchen, get to work. I'm not going to have any favorites around here. Jim's all, what a jerk. So he agrees with Mr. Trelawney that the captain has attitude issues. And maybe the captain does have an attitude, but he has the attitude of a strict leader. So sometimes it's hard to be the guy in charge. And Jim didn't take to that very well. So he ends up going down to the kitchen. Who's in the kitchen? Okay, so that brings us right up to chapter 10. So finish your writing, write out your summary, answer your questions, write down some words, put people in there that are important to the action of the story. I believe that you need to put the captain. I think you really, really need to put the doctor as well. And I think maybe Squire Trelawney, even though Jim does do some things in here, and also so does Silver. They may not be as important as those three, at least at the beginning of the chapter. You get to make your choices though. What is it you think you need to remember the most about the action in the story? Okay. And I'll see you back again for chapter 10.